Welcome to another episode of the Pennock Knockdown, a podcast where we explore key tactics and strategies that help digital marketing leaders. I've got a guest with me today, Nikita, who is the founder and CEO of Aspect. They are an e-commerce, email, and SMS agency. So, Nikita, super excited to have you today to talk about strategies in your lane.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about all things strategy, tacticals, not tacticals, everything in between. But yeah, I'm excited.
Wonderful. Let's have a go. So, my first question really is kind of what you were doing in your career prior to launching Aspect.
I worked at TJ Maxx. But no, I've been in business for myself for over 7, 8 years now. I started back in 2017. And I guess the job before that, before I started doing my own thing, I lied. It wasn't TJ Maxx. It was Pandora Jewelry. So, okay.
Okay. A little bit of an
I,
upgrade.
Yep. I know all the charms and all the bracelets. So you had to be good at sales for that. But what transitioned me into running a business for myself was I stumbled across a Reddit post talking about how I can sell t-shirts online without actually doing any of the fulfillment. Print on demand, drop shipping, we all know at this point. But in 2017, that was getting hot and I jumped on the bandwagon not knowing anything about marketing or Shopify or Amazon or any of that. And I slowly learned how to run Facebook ads for myself, Google ads, email, setting up a website, what Shopify theme to pick, all of that. And eventually the store hit a peak and then it started to dwindle because the saturation of the market and drop shipping just as a natural progression of who can sell for the cheapest and whatnot. So I got out of that and landed into actually helping friends, family, acquaintances with anything online marketing related. So helping them with their website, helping them install a Facebook pixel, setting up Facebook ads, setting up emails, that sort of thing. And eventually word of mouth spread and I started to charge for my services. And that organically led me to develop or essentially become a freelancer and helping people in my community with anything digital. Fast forward to around 2020, that's when we started to see a lot of growth for obvious reasons, more people going online, more businesses needing an online presence. And that sort of accelerated my client base to a point where I had to hire. And the way that we hired was purely going for e-commerce brands and sticking with e-com, but we did everything. We did Google ads, email, Facebook, TikTok, creative, because I thought that was the most natural way to progress. And if we're going to take everything, we might as well do everything. A year after trying to do that, led to burnout. I honestly couldn't focus on anything. We were focusing on so many different services at once. iOS 14 happened and then email shifts happened. And it's just a lot of things happening all at once where I'm like, okay, cool. We need to focus in on one niche and focus in on just one specific product service. And we landed on email because that was the one we had the best results for historically for our clients. It had the best retention, meaning clients stayed on for longer. And we had a great graphic design team helping with emails and Facebook ads at the time. So it meant less layoffs for everybody because I do
Mhm,
I hate firing people. Obviously,
mhm.
it's easy to fire people when they're not doing a good job, but everyone was crushing it. And I didn't want to be like, hey, we're switching lanes. Half the team's gone. So since 2021, 2022, we've been strictly doing email and SMS for e-commerce and haven't looked back.
There are 2 call-outs there that I really like. At the top, just that you were running your own brand for a while, your dropship shirt company or whatever it evolved into. Because I think that one provides so much credibility. It sounds like you've had a ton of credibility over the years too, with just your client roster. But the agencies I see, rather, where founders did actually do the work of what the brands they're catering to have done, I think just makes such a strong connection. And then second, my agency Pennock did the exact same thing as yours at the beginning, where we're like, well, let's just pull together a staff that can do a little bit of everything and be a Jill of all trades. And it worked for a little while until we're like, well, these emails we're running are not even up to my caliber of personal taste. So how can we put that in front of a client? So can relate to what you're saying there 100%. Talk us a little bit through the work today, the types of projects maybe you're focused on, or things that maybe differentiate you, I suppose, is the question from the other SMS and email agencies out there for your niche.
I think the way that we operate our current agency is very in line with the core principles I set up for the business. And that's essentially how I live my life. I see my company as an extension of myself. And one of the big core principles that I have is called speed is king. So a lot of opportunities, and I've seen this just being in the business world for this long, like a lot of opportunities get missed because things take too long to accomplish, or maybe the scope is too big and we can't get it done in enough time, and then we missed a big sales period. So I tried to build the company around that principle. Majority of the email agencies that I know and talk with, they have everything structured out in a specific way where they have a designer, copywriter, a setup person, and then maybe a strategist. To me, I've tried to go that route where, like, oh, it makes sense. Everyone's a specialist in their own right. It didn't quite go to plan, because in a perfect world, that makes sense. Where it's like, okay, copywriter writes the copy, then moves it on to the designer writes it, and then the setup person sets it up. But that is so many hands touching the project that at this point, if a client revision comes through, it kind of wrecks the whole entire thing. Now, there is ways to get around it, but from my experience, it caused way more stress than it actually helped. So I flipped the script on it and figured, why don't we just have one account strategist that handles 10 clients? So that way they're not bogged down by handling 20 different clients. Let's not have a designer or a copywriter or a setup person handle 20 different clients. Let's have one strategist, 10 clients. Let's have two designers underneath that strategist. And we focus on design specifically because in ecom, design is almost everything. Copywriting is still very important, but it's not as important as having really good design. You can teach someone copy, but you can't teach someone design. So we focused on hiring really, really good designers and spending a lot of time and investment on training them up to be really good copywriters and really good setup people when it comes to the Klaviyo side. Because with Klaviyo, it's usually just like push this button, set this up, put this margin this way. It's easy to teach and people can get into the swing of things. So the way we operate is that strategist handles 10 clients, and then these designers each handle 5 clients of their own, but they do the design, the setup, and the copywriting all completely at once. So if a revision comes through, they can quickly be like, okay, cool, I revised it and it's now live in your account, rather than like, oh, we have to wait for our copywriter to get back to us, or we have to wait for our designer to get back to us. So revisions take 1 to 2 days instead of 1 to 2 weeks.
That's really nice. That's a huge advantage. I think like going back to your speed is king is like obviously very well met through this execution style. That's great. So, and then you're able to take off your copy person, as you mentioned, because the copy person is now wrapped up into the design. How does like the execution and output of what you're talking through on Klaviyo, primarily for email, connect to what's going on in the SMS lane? And are you finding, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but are you finding particular types of businesses or types of audiences the business caters to do perform better on SMS? Is it all through Klaviyo? Are you using Attentive? Like, tell me kind of what the best practice is for SMS at this point.
I personally am not a fan of Attentive, but we have a mixture of some clients being on OmniSend, some clients being on Klaviyo, some clients being on PostScript. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to platform. As far as SMS goes, I don't think it's a specific niche and vertical. I could be wrong there. It could depend on niche and vertical. Like selling air conditioning units for $34,000 could be different than selling like a beauty makeup kit for $15 or $20. From my experience, I've seen the shift of higher average order value products tend to do worse on SMS than lower average order value products. And that barrier is anywhere between $150 to $200, depending on industry and niche. So if someone has to spend more than $200, that's usually they have to think about it longer. Like if we're thinking about the average consumer rather than a business owner, like for me at $200, trying to be humble here, I can spend $200 and be like, not and think about it. Like, okay, cool, let me just spend that money. But for the average person that's making $50,000 to $60,000 a year in America, $200 is a lot of money. That's a good chunk of their paycheck, and that's something they may have to discuss with their husband or with their wife. Like, hey, I'm planning on spending $200 on this gadget or this thing for the family. So SMS tends to not work as well for AOV higher than $200. Under, it's like, yeah, sure, it's $50. I'll just go ahead and buy it, and it's a very impulse purchase. So that's where SMS, in my opinion, shines very, very well, and we see it perform really well for those types of brands.
Got it. Okay. And then how the brands that you're doing both email and SMS, because they're running simultaneously as
Right.
business as usual, like what is the best play for execution across those two channels? Like, is it sort of a one-to-one match, what you share on email, what you put on SMS?
It's usually whatever we put out on email is about a third on SMS. If we did 1-to-1, man, we'd have such high unsubscribe rates because they'd be getting so many texts. And the cost that comes with SMS. Email, all you have to do is pay for your email service provider subscription, whether it's like 2, 3, 400 $500 a month. SMS either comes free, like with Klaviyo, it's free to add on SMS. You just have to pay for those credits. With PostScript, you have to pay for the credits. So like those credits add up. It's like a penny per recipient per send. And then it's another 3 pennies per recipient per send if you're sending out an image as well. So it's like 4 cents per send if you're sending an image with a text. So it gets really, really expensive the bigger the list you have. So where we see the most performance come in with SMS is following up in strategic points in the automation sequences. So whether it's abandoned checkout, abandoned cart, welcome, post-purchase, cross-sell, win-back, those flows SMS complements the best. And during any high sales period. So if there's a big sales period during 4th of July, like that just passed, SMS crushed it because it's like everyone's expecting some sort of deal, some sort of promise. So like SMS crushed. Same thing with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas. If we're talking about like Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, those kinds of holidays, SMS crushes. On the other sides of it, like in between those sales periods, like once every 2 weeks or once a week, an SMS does relatively well. But we focus a lot of our sends during those high sales periods where they can actually get their return on investment, because you can make a send. It'll cost you $300 to send, but will you get $300 back in net profit? That's up for interpretation.
You're right, right. Okay, that's helpful to understand. And so it sounds like for most of your brand, it sounds like volume of send is quite high for email. Do you have like a playbook for that, or is it sort of like getting in, understanding the brand, their purchasers' buyer behaviors? Like, what are some guardrails maybe you and your lead strategist are coming up with?
Depending on brand by brand, the higher their email list size is, that's where the frequency comes into play. Because if they have a list of 20 to 30,000, it may only make sense to send out once every few days or twice a week. But if they're in the echelon of like 150, 200,000, 300,000 contacts, and we need to send to the entire list, that's where segmentation comes into play. And that's where you have to segment based on audience interest, buying behavior, and engagement. So for example, like if we have like our core group of people that are constantly engaging with our emails, they're getting almost every email. But if they're not engaging with every email, then we try to tie in an affinity product. So if they bought a toothbrush, selling toothpaste. So it purely depends on how big their list size. And that's where we can send out maybe an email every day, but not everyone on the list gets that every single email that we send out.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, that was a lot of back and forth.
No, well, I mean, I think it's more of that art than it is a science, right? So it's like kind of getting into understanding the value of the client's list, the quantity of things they're pushing out there, what their Marcom calendar looks like in general, right? Let's switch gears a little bit and maybe talk about, like, I don't know if we should call them your icks, but like the things that you're finding that people just are not leveraging well, or they're doing maybe wrong, that you're just like, gosh, this is so painful for me to look at. I'm sure you discover this oftentimes when you're doing your audits of potential clients. So yeah, walk us through a little bit of what is cringeworthy in your world.
The first one is having all of your information on one pop-up. So the name, phone number, email, any interest information, all on just one pop-up. That scares away not only myself, but everyone else that's visiting your website, because that is a lot of information that someone has to do to just get a discount code. Some people are willing to do it, but you're shunning out a majority of people that could have added their email or could have added their phone number and gotten that discount code, and they would now be on your list and be able to receive messaging from you. So I try to split it up into multiple steps. So like the first step is email, and then SMS, and then any other important information. So that's what I would recommend doing. And like, that's a big ick I still see on like big 8-figure and up brands that are like, bro, what are you doing? Like, no one's filling this out, and your opt-in percentage is probably like sub 2 to 1%. That's a big one. Another one is having important information below the fold. So you have that above the fold section, which is like the first thing you see when you load up a website, or the first thing you see when you load up an email. And they just have either a big banner image or a big block of text, and then their coupon codes, their headlines, their offer details are all below the email. 90% of people don't read the entire email. I'm sorry to break it to you if this is the first time you're hearing it. Don't shoot the messenger. But unfortunately, most people see just the first thing on the email, and that's all they're basing their information off of. Another 50% may scroll down one fold, and then another 25% maybe get to 75% point of the email. So have all of the important information above the fold section, because that is what people are seeing first. And that's what they're going to base their decision making off of. If they see a big block of text, they have no idea what's going on. They're going to back out of that email and not take any action to begin with. If they see the offer, the conditions of the offer, the actual coupon code, the button or an action you want them to click immediately, they'll do it because they're like, oh, if it's a buy one, get one, conditions apply to this specific category. It's like, oh, I've been thinking about buying that category. Click here to get this offer. You click it, they're going to buy that thing because you're making it really, really easy for them to understand, interpret the information, and take the action.
Those are good ones. I think you gave us two. Do you have a third? Do you have time for a third?
I think another one is probably sending out to the entire list without exclusions. I'm not opposed to sending out to the entire list. We also do it, but the big thing is we send out to the entire list, but we also have a lot of exclusions layered onto that. So the entire list could be 50,000 people, but the actual amount of people that we end up sending to could be 30,000 because of the amount of exclusions that we put in. Now, granted, this is getting a little technical, a little geeky, but the exclusions should help weed out any bad apples in your email list. So people that have bounced, if you're sending to people that are bouncing, they're going to keep bouncing. They're like one of those, like, I was going to say bouncy balls, but they're just going to not receive that email. And that's only going to tarnish your domain reputation and hurt your deliverability in the long run. You want to exclude people that are submitting spam. You want to exclude people that haven't engaged in more than a year. You want to exclude people that are maybe not relevant to this specific email. Like if you're sending out a VIP email, then why are you including the entire list? Maybe just include the VIPs. So little things like that not only hurt the relevance of the email that the audience is going to, but also potentially hurt your deliverability in the long run. That's probably my last ick. It's a little technical, but it's still important to keep up to date with.
What's your stance on excluding the most recent purchaser? So we were doing promos this summer for a brand, and even the paid ads lane, which is where we focus sometimes. The ask is, should we be excluding people who just bought in the last 7 days, let's say?
It depends on the promo. So for us, if the promo is like, we had this happen with like a red light therapy brand recently where they decided to give away a free device with the purchase of, it's like a little tiny red light therapy device. It's like the size of your phone. It's free with the purchase of one that's like this big, almost the size of like a laptop.
Sounds like a good offer.
Really, really good offer. So we decided to exclude the people that bought the little one because at that point, it's like, why did I even buy the little one to begin with if I could have just gotten it for free if I spent an extra $150 or $200? Now, maybe not everyone has the capacity to spend that extra $150 to $200, but at the same time, we don't want to cause bad blood and cause returns. So we try to exclude recent purchasers as long as it doesn't conflict with the offer. So if there's a big discrepancy or if there's a chance that there might be a high return period or a high cut, like, or these people are going to flood the customer service lines, then we try to exclude those people. Otherwise, we try to include the entire list.
That's fair. I love that. I want to circle back to something you mentioned about the forms on the website and how if there's too many questions and you're not submitting in advance of all the questions, it can be a lost cause. So that leads me to kind of believe that, that's part of the scope of what you're doing. We've encountered a lot of boutique email agencies that really aren't tracking responsible for, let's say, email list growth. So what's your view on like how integrated that is in the overall approach of an email strategy?
I think if you're an email agency and that's your only focus, you should focus on every single aspect of email marketing or every single aspect of, I guess, retention. Because from the beginning, for us, we focus on pretty much everything. We even go into your Shopify and update any reviews apps because it's adjacent to what we're doing. If we have more reviews coming in or more testimonials, that's only going to make email perform better. If you have more people going through your email list, that's going to make email perform better. So it's almost irresponsible if you don't take care of these types of sections of your business, because at the end of the day, it should be your responsibility. I'm under the impression that I feel like I'm almost preaching to the choir here, but it's important to have email capture and email opt-in be very important. Like, I mean, sometimes even we take care of the actual offer that they would want to run, even if it's outside of Klaviyo or OmniSend or whatever. Like if they're like, oh, we're going to run ads to generate leads. We're like, we can help you create the offer. We're not going to run the ads, but we'll help you like create the offer and help you set that up. But we're not going to touch anything else because that still leads back to us getting more subscribers onto the account.
And I will say with confidence, because we've done this test multiple times for brands, depending on the customer base, the AOV, the lag time to purchase, all of that. Oftentimes in the ad space, testing out form fill ads or lead gen ads on Meta as opposed to conversion campaigns on Meta, you might get a stronger return on ad spend when you get people to sign up for email and let them convert through email. We've got a couple brands in our portfolio of 85 throughout the years that always do better from an efficiency perspective and a profitability perspective when we give the brand leads, not when we give the brand conversions.
Exactly. If you have a great funnel that people go through, whether it's like a specifically built out welcome funnel or a specifically built out offer funnel that makes it a no brainer for that customer to purchase. Once you get that email, it's free impressions for the rest of the life of that subscriber. So if they didn't buy during that funnel, they're going to buy eventually.
Yep, 100%. So as we're wrapping here, Nikita, I think the final question I have for you is if you were going back to your days at Pandora, the beginning of your career, and giving yourself advice for what to do next and how this was going to ebb and flow over the years, what would you tell yourself?
I think about this question a lot, maybe a little bit too much. But I think I'd give myself the advice of just stick to one vertical, stick to one niche. I would also tell myself to focus on sales as much as possible. I love tinkering with things. I'm a very big tinkerer, whether it's digitally or physically. I like to work on things with my hands. And I carried that from my childhood all the way up to when I started doing the business. So for me, I took it very hard to heart that I need to build this thing out first, or I need to do these things first before I can sell. Which is, I mean, it's still great. It still worked out. Like you need to know what you're doing and you need to be competent. I'm not saying that you should shy away from that, but I think I would have told myself, like, hey, you're not focusing enough on getting new clients through the door. Because when you have new clients through the door, you have new experiences. You're able to learn off those experiences a lot quicker than trying to figure out how clients should be serviced or how this should be set up or how that should be set up. So I think I would have told myself to focus on sales significantly more and try to get more clients through the door rather than trying to tinker with operations or trying to tinker with what I was learning at the time.
Fair enough. Love that advice for your earlier self. If people want to get in touch with you, the agency, your capabilities, where should they be going?
The best way to contact us would be through our website, aspectagency.com, ASPEKT agency.com. If you want to learn exactly how we're doing or what strategies we're running, I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Nikita Vakrushev. I go through strategies, case studies, new tactics, tips that you can also implement into your brand as well every week, pretty much. And if you want to see what I'm up to on LinkedIn, it's just my name.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. This is a lot of good information on what's going on in the email space. So thank you so much for your time and thank you for everyone for tuning in.